So Thursday, March 26th, today, as we're recording, is the 29th anniversary of Fight Night at the Joe. Devin, you were probably in preschool at that point. I was almost 7 years old. And Evan, that was about when you got involved in the bank robbery, right? In LA from last episode, right?
I'm not that old, man. No, I was in college. It was my freshman year in college. Yeah. But I knew you set that one up. Totally.
Love it, love it. Anyway, Fight Night at the Joe. Maybe the Red Wings show some fight this week. We'll talk about that and some more coming up next.
Welcome to the Flying Octopus Podcast, offering a new perspective on Red Wings hockey, as well as all the important news from around the NHL. And now, here are your hosts, Tony Wolak, Devin Little, and Evan Sabrin.
Hey, it's Carter Bear, and you're listening to the Flying Octopus Podcast.
Welcome to episode 76 of the Flying Octopus Podcast, the Fabian Brunstrom edition. You guys remember him, right? And his little short stint with the Red Wings. He was supposed to be like the next big thing. And that's the only one I could come up with for 76. Not a lot of guys out there were 76. I'm your co-host, Evan Sabrin, joined as always by Devin Little and Tony Wolak. Lot to get to today, guys. Hockey Town is, I don't know what you'd call it right now. There's a doom.
Tense.
What's that? Tense?
I would say
Yeah.
tense. Anxious, tense.
I'd say it's like half doom and gloom, and the other half's like ride or die with the Red Wings, and that's fine. I'm like in the middle, you know. I'm angry, but then I'm like, okay. You know, it's been a pretty productive season, as you can look at that. But a lot of people are just too impatient, and it's just getting crazy. And tonight was even crazier. At the time of our recording, a lot of games tonight that kind of impacted the Red Wings in the standings. So the Canadiens, they beat the Blue Jackets 2-1. Senators lost to the Penguins in a shootout, so they get the loser point. Islanders beat the Stars 2-1. And the Blackhawks lost to the Flyers. Flyers won 5-1. And before you know it, we haven't even been talking about the Flyers lately. They're only 2 points back from the Red Wings in this chase. As it stands now in the wild card spot, Boston holds the first one with 88 points. The Islanders now with 87 after that win over Dallas tonight. Senators 86 after the shootout loss. And the Red Wings are at 84 with Philly at 82. Now the Red Wings have a game in hand on Ottawa, 2 games in hand on New York, and a game in hand on Boston. So Red Wings got a lot of work to go. 11 games left that they have. And it's, you know, the schedule's, it's gotten a little bit better than what they've gone through now, but it's not going to get any easier starting tomorrow night when they take on Buffalo, who's just an absolute juggernaut. And that's actually my cup pick for now. Friday at Buffalo, Saturday, they're hosting Philly. Then they go on a 3-game road trip, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and New York next week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Sunday, they return home to take on the Wild. Tuesday versus Columbus, then Philadelphia on April 9th, Saturday, April 11th, at home again against New Jersey. And then they finish out the season in Florida with games with Tampa and the Panthers. So, guys, 11 games left. There's a lot to do here. What is your projection? What do the Red Wings have to do? How many games do you think they have to win to sneak into this playoff spot? Because there's going to be a high percentage amount of points that usually will get you into the playoffs. Usually, 95 to 99 will get you into the playoffs. This year, it might be a little more. So where do you stand with the Red Wings making this playoff push?
Well, I think 7 wins should be enough. Now, there are a lot of teams jockeying for position here, so a couple of things will probably have to fall Detroit's way, a couple of things with the Islanders, the Bruins, Ottawa, whoever. 7 wins should be enough. Now, winning 7 out of 11 games is a tall task. There are some good opponents in there for the next 11 games. Not impossible. Red Wings have done this already this season. One thing to call out is that if the Red Wings want to reach the playoffs, they need to do so on like a high note, like on a hot streak, right? That, at least in my opinion, that is the only way this team is going to actually do some damage. Because, like, think about it. If the Red Wings, I don't know, if they finish with like 92, 93 points. They win a handful, they lose a handful, they get some overtime losses in there. And just by some miracle through tiebreakers and other teams losing, they sneak in. If you are slumping at the end of the season and not going in on a high note, it doesn't even matter. Like, you're going to get bounced right away by Tampa Bay or Carolina or Buffalo if you're not playing your best hockey. This is when you need to be playing your best hockey. It's simple for the Red Wings. Like we covered it previously, like score 3 goals, allow 3 goals or less. Just do that. You're in good shape. But this is when you need to be playing your best hockey. And if the Red Wings can't do that, then like it doesn't matter if you reach the playoffs or not. You're going to get bounced right away. And it makes you think like, well, that was a letdown, you know? So 7 games, at least in my opinion, if they win that many, they should be in. Devin, how about you? Are you in the same boat here?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with pretty much everything you said. 7 wins, I think they have a real good shot. If they can pull out 8 wins, I think they got it. 8 is like the magic number in terms of they should absolutely be in. Now, 8 wins out of 11 games is obviously a taller test than 7 out of 11s. And honestly, I think verbalizing it like that kind of emphasizes how big their last 2 losses were against the Senators and the Bruins. It closed their gap significantly, and now they're in a spot where they, like you said, they should be playing their best hockey. It's that time of year, but they legitimately have no choice at this point. Like they can maybe get away with one more iffy loss, but their margin of error is basically gone. If they're going to win 7 or 8 out of 11 and head into the playoffs on a high note, like you said, like I said, they really only have room in the schedule for maybe one more bad loss, and it's probably got to be sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and facing Buffalo tonight. I don't think the Red Wings were awful in Ottawa on Tuesday. You know, they outshot them 35-21. They definitely had their chances, but you're looking at an Ottawa team that basically had all their top defensemen out. And yet somehow they pulled out a 3-2 win. That was a game that the Red Wings, I felt, really needed to win. I thought they played okay offensively. They had their chances. You know, it was a tight game. Like I said, all these games lately they're definitely playoff feels. But how do the Red Wings not take advantage of that situation against the Senators? Like, that was tough to watch.
Yeah, it was a frustrating loss on a lot of ends. Like you said there, they're depleted defense, playing on the second night of a back-to-back, division rival, and arguably your most hated rival right now. There's obviously a lot of animosity between the Senators and the Red Wings when they play. They're right there neck and neck in the play. Like all the ingredients are there. That was a game that they really wanted to win, and they've been doing a really good job this season of beating that team too. And to not capitalize on that opportunity, not only did it significantly close their margin of error, like I just said, but it like Moritz Seider said after the game, it opened the door for the Senators to now have a really good shot at making the playoffs. They opened the door for a rival. And it's the kind of loss that it fuels the kind of stuff that you're seeing online right now, where people are upset and are starting to, give up on the team. Losses like that fuel that kind of stuff, because it's a game you gotta win and an opportunity that you have to take advantage of. And for one reason or another, they weren't able to. What about you, Tony? What do you think about that loss?
It was pretty disheartening. You want this team to come out and dominate and really take it to a team, like you said, that's missing 4 of their top 6 defensemen, or however many it is, with where they're at with injuries. And of course, one of the call-ups, even if he's a former first-round pick, Kari Yakimchuk, getting his first point and goal against the Red Wings, it's like, of course
Naturally.
he did, but it's frustrating in the sense of, like, we talked about this several times on the podcast. The Red Wings need more goal scoring, and that has been the problem these last 2 games, especially. The defense has been there. The goaltending has been there. Maybe a couple goals that Gibson gave up were kind of not so great, but they're just one more goal scorer there to really, be that guy who can contribute in these high pressure games. Man, that would be great. But That's not what happened. And instead, we are, almost at April here, and it seemed like a lot that the Red Wings were going to make the playoffs for most of the season, and now it's more likely than not, like, going to be on the outside looking in. So, I mean, what I like to see for these next few games, and honestly, just taking it one game at a time, is just every game now is just do or die. You go into Buffalo, that's been a house of horrors for the Red Wings lately. If they can beat Buffalo, not only is that good for obviously the standings, but secondly, if Red Wings do squeak into the playoffs, play Buffalo, you have some confidence against them. They get murdered by Buffalo, which sometimes happens there. What do you think is going to happen if the Red Wings face them in the playoffs? So just start with that. Go out, play your game, play the way that the team has been the whole season, and have a functioning power play for a change, and just take that game and get some points out of it. Like that's all you can do right now. Is this is the most important game of the season on Friday night against Buffalo, and then whatever happens after that, it really just depends on how this first game goes.
It's crazy seeing all these teams all of a sudden just catch fire. All these teams in the wild card chase, except Detroit. Philly 7-2-1 in their last 10. Ottawa 7-2-1 in their last 10. Boston's jumped back a little bit 5-2-3. Islanders are 6-4. I mean, Columbus 6-2-2. It's just everyone has started clicking at the right time except for one team, and that's Detroit. And I'm curious what you guys think, because you look at when you're on social media, Twitter or talk radio, whatever it be, the pundits keep saying, well, there's no effort level. We talk about passengers on the team. McClellan said that before. It's not the effort level. I don't know that it's the effort level. These guys are multi-million-dollar athletes. Like, they want to win. And you can hear it in their voice in the locker rooms after with the post-game pressers and all that. What do you think it is? Is it just that goal scoring, Tony, that you just talked about it? Do we tend to overrate our players to the point where we think they should be better, but yet the talent level is just not what it needs to be, especially in the top six? I know that's a loaded question. Sorry, buddy.
I do think it's the construction of the team. Because if you look at it just specifically the forwards, right? You have, 4 top 6 forwards, and then others who are just playing that role. Patrick Kane, I'm being pretty gracious, calling him a top 6 forward. Apart from that, you have other players who could contribute, can contribute at some points, but are not bona fide goal scorers. You look at the bottom 6, and there's really not a whole lot going on there in terms of goal scoring or creating offense. Glad to see Dominic Shine got a goal due to his effort and going to the net and playing in the dirty areas. If you're going to have players in the bottom 6 who don't really do those things, it's like, why are they even there in the first place? Like, I think that's the problem, is just you look at some of these other teams, Ottawa especially, you have these players who play like a physical, mean role in the bottom 6, and they're able to, generate quality chances just based on cycling the puck, getting to the crease, scoring goals. I mean, Lars Eller scored a goal against the Red Wings. He's not, he's not a pure goal scorer at this point. He's a 4th line grinder, and it's like the Red Wings were caught on their own end, and he found an open slot, and no one was there to cover him. But is the Red Wings 4th line doing that? No. Is their 3rd line doing that? No, not really. Like, it's not that you have passengers, it's just that you have players who just don't have that same offensive IQ to go out and be a threat in the O zone. They dump the puck in, chase after it, and then follow it out of the zone, and then change. If they can get more consistent production from their bottom 6, I mean, I think there would be some more wins here and there. It just, you really need to look, like, no matter how the season goes, the defense is pretty much set for next year. The goalies are pretty much set. You really need to take a hard look at the offense and say, this was not good enough. What can we do to make things better? And there's 11 games left for players to prove they belong next year. And I don't know, like, so far there have been quite a few who just have not been able to contribute enough offensively.
I 100% agree with all of that. It's funny. The last, was it 11, 12 seconds of that Ottawa game, there's that skirmish in front of the net. Dylan Larkin's involved, Artem Zub And then Alex DeBrincat gets involved. He ends up fighting the guy and gets a 5-minute major like you do when you fight. And my thought immediately goes to, great, their best goal scorer is now in the penalty box. And in fact, not even just their best goal scorer, like their only one, if we're being honest. At that, like, I didn't necessarily think the Red Wings were going to win the game at that point anyways, even before DeBrincat dropped the gloves. But once that happened, it was, game's over. Like they just don't have anyone else that you can look to score a goal in the clutch. There's players that have had moments here and there. We've seen Lucas Raymond do it in the past. We can go up and down the line. Patrick Kane's done it. There's guys in the line that have done it, but when you're looking, they just don't have a guy that you can just tee up for the shot, because that's who it's supposed to go to. It's DeBrincat and no one else. So, and maybe I kind of unintentionally led into like the other part of my response here, because they need another goal scorer. They absolutely do. They need someone to alleviate the goal scoring pressure off of Alex DeBrincat, but they also need a bastard. They need like to kind of emphasize that point you made, Tony, about the bottom six. They need someone who is going to piss the other team off and it isn't like a relic of the past in the sense that they're just there to fight people, but someone that can grind people down, can hit people, can assert himself on the opposition and just piss the other team off. If we're being honest, I guess the best way I can think of to describe this, remember that image of Michael Rasmussen standing over Jack Hughes from last season? They need a player that does that more often than not, because let's be honest, Michael Rasmussen does that maybe twice a season. If they could have a player that does that more often than not, I genuinely, between that and then the extra goal scorer that they need, I think they have a lineup that can compete. I really do. And maybe those guys are in the system and we're just kind of still playing the waiting game, but I would not be shocked if, like you said, Tony, this off season is kind of spent really kind of doing an autopsy, so to speak, on the offense, and kind of figuring out what they can do to get it better, because it's obvious. It's been obvious this month, specifically the month of March, that the offense is not good enough. There's some good pieces here and there. We talked about last episode about how Emmett Finney is he's looking like a player. He's been getting a lot of chances lately, but he's still a young player, still needs time. There's a lot of players in the system that need time, but the Red Wings are at a phase now where they can't wait 3-4 more years for these players to arrive. I'm expecting some sort of significant move on offense this season.
And like, yeah, I'm 100%. And I know we're going to cover that ad nauseum in future episodes, like what's going to happen this offseason, what needs to be done. In the meantime, this Buffalo game, they need to find a way to break through one way or another. It's not just that they need to win. They also need to like get the monkey off their back in terms of their offensive output since the All-Star break, right? Like the game against Calgary was the only game where they really broke through and, pumped home 6 goals. And like, I'm not saying score 6 goals every night, but you need those games to like really give yourself some momentum, give yourself some just have that wind at your back, being like, we're a good team. Like, it's been tough lately, but we're a good team. We just pumped home 6 goals. I think if they can, like, this Buffalo game, what I'm already getting vibes about it is, do you remember back, I don't know, November, right? Red Wings were playing they're playing St. Louis, and they were down 4-0 early in the second period, and it's like, all right, here we go again, another lost season. It's still November, but you're playing a bad Blues team. You're down 4-0 early in the second at home. And I believe, if I remember correctly, they got booed off the ice at the end of the first because they were down 3-0. And then the Red Wings go out and score and, tie it up, and then, eventually win the game 6-4. The goal scorers in that game were Jonathan Berggren. Good for him. He's on the Blues now. Emmett Finney. JT Compher tipped home up a weird shot from Travis Hammond. I remember. Alex DeBrincat snapped his cold streak, and then Simon Edmondson got the winner in the empty netter. None of those players, I mean, DeBrincat aside, like, none of those players were the players you expect to score. Larkin didn't score. Raymond didn't score. Kane didn't score. And DeBrincat had been on a cold streak, so you probably weren't expecting him to score. That's what the Red Wings need right now. Like that sort of game where you get so much momentum from like a come from behind victory and scoring up like a bunch of goals. And you're getting contributions from players up and down the lineup and players who you wouldn't expect to be contributing. That's what this team needs to like really like get that momentum behind them and like go on a run. I can see Buffalo going up early. That would not be a surprise to me whatsoever. But this team just needs to show some fight that they're not giving up. They're not just collapsing. They're not saying, end of the season, it's everything's repeating itself again. And if they can win a game like that, either that or just absolutely dominate somehow, that will be huge for them. Like that is, those two outcomes like would be so beneficial for the rest of the season. If they can do that, like I'm telling you, like it's possible. Like I know I'm the optimist on the show here, but you know, this team just needs something to spark them. Whether it's a come from behind victory, whether it's a big fight, whether it's, you know, just absolutely pumping a team, something. They need a spark to really ignite them for the final stretch run here. One team that is more than likely going to be in the playoffs are the Grand Rapids Griffins. They started the year absolutely on fire. They cooled off a bit lately, but still are positioned nicely to be a threat in the Calder Cup playoffs. Devin, as our resident Grand Rapids resident and Griffins expert here, want to get a little bit of your take on how the season's wrapping up for the Griffins and what you're expecting as the playoffs approach.
Well, it's actually kind of fun to be recording tonight because actually, like literally right before we hit the record button, the Griffins actually clinched the Central Division with their win tonight. So good on them. They have secured home ice for at least the first two rounds of playoff hockey that they'll play. They're not too far away from clinching their conference, honestly. So they very well might have home ice for at least the first three rounds they play in, assuming they get that deep, obviously. Like you said, Tony, they have cooled off a little bit. They were obviously on a once in a lifetime kind of run to start the season. They could not be beaten. It was insane. Now their version of coming back down to earth, they are still 45, 13, and 5. That's insane. And what's I think maybe the most impressive thing about it is that they're doing it well. They've had a lot of players kind of coming and going from the lineup for this reason or that reason. Obviously, there's call-ups to Detroit. A lot of players a lot of significant players even have missed time with injuries. The player that has actually played the most amount of games with the Griffins this year is Gabriel Seeger at 62. Everyone, there's a couple other players that are close, but like the big players that you're kind of, you were hoping to see play a lot of games with the Griffins this year, they're not necessarily where you hope they'd be. But now, who are those players that you'd hope to be playing a lot of games? Well, of course, they're the prospects. It's been an interesting last few weeks specifically because obviously earlier in the year, Michael Brantzeg-Nygaard made the Red Wings out of training camp, played 9 games, and then was returned to Grand Rapids, played the next few months with the Griffins, looked really good. As of today, he's got 52 games played with them and 37 points. Really kind of built some confidence, came back up to Detroit earlier this month, got in, I think, 2 games. And is now back down there. But then also, not only him going back and forth, but they also welcomed Axel Sandin-Pellikka to the team for the first time this season. And that's maybe an addition that they were expecting at the beginning of the season, but they probably had kind of dismissed that possibility in recent months. But Sandin-Pellikka, 2 games played, has 2 points. I'm looking forward to seeing if he can kind of get that confidence built back up, get the offensive game going. I know there's a lot of fans out there that are disappointed that he is not still on the NHL roster. I'm sure he is the most disappointed person in on the planet that is that he's not on the NHL roster anymore. But I think that this is a good opportunity for him to play on obviously a playoff bound team, on a really, really good team, and continue to build chemistry with some of the organization's younger players, get his game going again, and kind of give himself a running start into next season. And who knows, maybe he rejoins the Red Wings if they do make the playoffs. But, that we're still a little whiles away from that. Looking elsewhere, and I know we're going to talk about him a little bit more in a little bit here. Carter Mazur has recently returned to the lineup, scored 2 goals in the game today, has 11 goals in 14 games, 15 points. He's had some unfortunate luck with injuries over the last 2 seasons now. Obviously, think back to last year with his NHL debut that was cut very short, and then he was never able to return. The thing is that when Mazur does play, he puts up points. Like, he's been on a point per game pace in the AHL last season and this season. It's just when he's playing in the AHL, the man's putting up points. So he's a prospect that I am very interested to see what the organization has in store for, has planned for him as we progress into this into the future. You have Amadeus Lombardi, who also has missed some time, 36 points in 39 games. He's another guy that he misses time here and there, but when he does play, again, he plays with pace. He puts up points. I think he was the second line center in the game today. If he wasn't, he was the first line center. He's another interesting player that we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, I think one other, just to kind of talk about one other kind of significant statistic on this Griffins team, John Leonard, who has obviously been one of those players that has kind of yo-yoed from Detroit to Grand Rapids, is actually second in the AHL in goals this season. He has 30, and he has that in 39 games. Arthur Kaliev, who's currently in the Ottawa Senators organization, leads the AHL with, I believe it's 33 goals, and he's played 62 games. If John Leonard had played 10 more games, there's reason to believe that he'd be leading the AHL in goals right now. He's been a lethal weapon for the Griffins when he's played in Grand Rapids as well. But just kind of wrap this all up. I do think the Griffins are missing their captain, Dominic Shire. I think, but they're also very happy that he's shown well for himself. There's no kind of about that. He absolutely has shown well for himself playing in Detroit. I think that Red Wings fans have quickly grown to learn why Griffins fans love this guy so much. And I think that he, when he does return to Grand Rapids, going to be he wears that C for a reason. He's the heart and soul of the team, and he's going to be a big part of their playoff push this season.
So let's talk for a minute about Carter Mazur and Amadeus Lombardi. Like, these are 2 players, like you said, they've missed quite a bit of time, but when they are in the lineup, they're quite effective. And like, asking this from like a Red Wings perspective, do you think that like they are NHL ready? Like, I ask this because like both of them will be requiring waivers to be assigned to Grand Rapids next season, which means that, given the talent of these 2, they're more likely going to be Red Wings than not next season, unless they're trade chips. But that's a whole other story. But they're more likely to be in Detroit than Grand Rapids. I'll phrase it that way. From what you've seen, are these guys ready to be NHL contributors?
I think Mazur is, and I think that if you were to ask people within the organization, I think that the general consensus is that they believe he is too. To what extent, we don't know. I think it's just a matter of him being able to consistently play games, right? Obviously, he's been hampered by injuries, but there's a reason he got that call up last season. I think they definitely intended for him to play more than 1 game. I even think that the intent was there for him to play some games this season, but injuries got in the way. So he's ready. Whenever he's able to get that kind of prove to the organization that he's got some consistency going, I think they're going to give him a look. I really do. Amadeus Lombardi is actually on the other hand, he's a really interesting case because he's somebody that I honestly think they needed to call up, and maybe they still might in the last couple of weeks here, but I think they needed to call him up and get him into just a couple games and just kind of see what he looks like, kind of see what you got there. He's played down the middle in Grand Rapids, but there's definitely kind of a consensus that at the NHL level, he's going to be a winger. And I think that that's another reason why you'd want to get him into at least a couple games in the NHL level to see what he looks like on the wing, see how effective he is, see if the pace of play isn't too much for him. He does play with a lot of pace. I think that there's definitely a chance that he'll be able to keep up with it and still be effective. But you don't know until you see it, right? And maybe the thing here is that a lot of teams, a lot of organizations have an Amadeus Lombardi in their system that is right there. They know they're going to have a tough decision to make next season. Really good prospect, has a lot as an intriguing skill set, and they might have to put him on waivers next year. I think maybe the thing with Lombardi next year is that maybe the plan is to try to sneak him through and kind of let other teams see him as we already have our version of this guy. We don't need another one. And then once an opening becomes available, you bring him up. I don't know. I'd feel better about the organization seeing him as an NHL player if he had played some games by now. And some of it's not his fault. He got injured, right? But when he has played, like I said, he's been really good. And I think that he specifically is one of those players that you need to see what he is or like where he's at before you can make a proper assessment of what your plan for next season is with him, really. Because he might look good in training camp, right? And whatever, maybe Eisman always talks about how these players need to earn their spots, and to this point, I think he's been true to that. We've seen Emmett Finney earn a spot, Lucas Raymond. You can go up and down the list. Players have earned their spots. I would hate for them to have to give Amadeus Lombardi a spot because they don't want to lose him on waivers, whether he earns a spot or not. So, yeah, I just really surprised he hasn't played any games yet. I'm really interested to see what the future has in store for him.
From what I heard, the Red Wings did plan to give him some games last year, but then he got injured like almost immediately after that decision was made. So, we'll see what happens down the stretch here. Yeah, but I do think he can be an effective. See, this is the type of bottom six player I was talking about before, like one that can actually contribute offensively.
Sure,
He's not like the grinded out sort of player like Carter Mazur can be, but he brings an element that just isn't there in the bottom six right now. Just the pace, the offensive talent, and if he's playing on the wing, that's less responsibility for him. He can go out and do his thing instead of being a center where he has to focus on offense and defense. Yeah, I'm very curious to see how this offseason plays out because there are going to be some tough questions asked one way or another, and if changes need to be made, they have quite the pipeline to deal from. But one player who can bring more of that physical element, but is a few years off, is Eddie Genborg, and he just joined the Griffins, and he's coming off of a pretty strong draft +1 campaign in the SHL. We mentioned he signed the last episode and that he'll be going back over to Sweden for next season, but what have you seen from him so far at the AHL level, since this is the highest he's played in his career?
Well, Genborg, first and foremost, super excited to see him basically immediately make the jump over to play here in North America. I think that his game is uniquely suited for him to have success as a player at this level. Now, what caliber of player he's going to be, we'll find out in due time. But he has enough of a physical game to where I think he could make a career for himself as just like a grinder type of guy. But he also has the offensive punch in his game to where he could be more. He could be a middle six. He could be that bastard that I mentioned earlier, right? I think that if there's anyone in the system that I would bet on to be that guy, it's probably him, honestly. But in he's played 3 games with the Griffins. He hasn't put up a point yet. He's a -2, 2 shots. Stat line doesn't necessarily jump out at you. And I think that's somewhat to be expected. It's usually pretty rare that players come from Europe and immediately start tearing the AHL up. It's rare that happens. I think that you've seen his skill set. You see he plays like a big boy. But you can also see that he's in a new. Everything around him is new, right? Like he's learning all his teammates.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, he's a raw prospect. Everything around him is new. He's learning the systems. He's learning his teammates. Learning the language, learning where to eat, where to stay, all these things. And with all of that, apprehensive isn't the right word I would use, because that's just not who he is as a player and a person. But there is that little bit of passiveness there that just every player kind of going through that learning curve typically shows. So I think he's a player that as he continues to get reps and get games, he's going to kind of get back into himself and find his fit in the Griffins lineup. And once that happens, I'm excited because he could be a big playoff performer for the Griffins, and that who knows what that sets him up for next season too.
What's up,
Evan? You know who you remind me of right now with that hat? Rob Lowe, when he was in the stands wearing the NFL branded hat.
Hey, we're probably about the same fucking age.
Oh wow,
I'm gonna keep that in too. You think I'm gonna cut that, don't you?
No.
Yeah.
Go for a young blood. Let's.
See, that should have been the fucking cold open right there. I might even change it to that. That was so good.
And we're going to wrap today with some news and notes. A few items of business here. First off, Frozen Four kicked off today. Evan was probably very happy to see Michigan State advance to the second round. Trey Augustine had a stellar game for the Spartans as they beat Connecticut. As for the Red Wings, they re-signed Jacob Bernard-Docker to a 2-year extension at $1.6 million. Guys, I know I have been critical personally of JBD lately. I mean, I'm certain I'm not the only one, but if you're getting a 25-year-old defenseman playing the third pairing minutes, there's still upside to his game. He hasn't reached his peak yet. Sure, why not? 1.6 million per season for the next 2 years. That's fine. It's stability. It's can easily be buried if you need to. Can easily be moved if you need to. Gives them a body that they clearly trust him. I would just like to see fewer shifts that are over a minute for him, but we'll get there.
He got the contract that they should have given Justin Holl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
wasn't going to happen, but you're right. Real quick, I think that this is ultimately like the perfect contract for a guy that you're expecting to be really nothing more than a bottom pairing defenseman that basically just helps you fill out your lineup. He's going to be your 6th or 7th defenseman. Obviously, Tom McClellan talked either yesterday or today about how he's kind of forming some chemistry with Albert Johansson. They are able to kind of trust that third pairing a little bit. I agree with you, Tony. I think there's still some things to work on there, but ultimately you could do way worse than this contract. And I think that also it kind of echoes just the wave of how teams seem to be handling free agents right now. Let's be honest, free agency seems to be dying. The Red Wings weren't going to get a significant. I mean, they might have been able to get an upgrade over Jacob Bernard-Docker, but they weren't going to get a significant one. And if they were going to overpay for one. So ultimately, I think teams are going to start to lean more on just keeping their own guys. And living to fight another day. And, if they need to augment their roster, there are other ways of going about that. And I think that this move kind of echoes that kind of mentality.
And look, I am critical about his shift length and getting caught out in the defensive zone, but more often than not, he's been a plus player for the Red Wings. So if you're, again, reliable third pairing defenseman, the Red Wings have had plenty worse in the last few years. So why not? Lastly, Cam Talbot tweaked something and will not be traveling with the Red Wings to Buffalo. Michael Postavo is called up under emergency conditions. Be interesting to see what the Red Wings do with their goaltending situation, playing back-to-back games here Friday and Saturday. it wouldn't be surprising if Gibson got both, and it was just the Red Wings saying, hey, we got to throw our best guys out there and just roll with it, and Postava backs up both games. Also wouldn't be super surprised if Talbot was still out and the Red Wings called up Sebastian Cossa to play against the Philadelphia Flyers and to give them a spark that way. So, TBD here, but for now, it looks like Gibson's starting against Buffalo, and then from there, we'll see where it goes.
You brought up a good point the other day, Devin, on Twitter. Are we overworking John Gibson at this point?
Do we have a choice?
Bingo.
Yeah.
I mentioned Amadeus Lombardi being somebody that you want to see some games from. Sebastian Cossa is like right there with him on top of that list of players. I think you should have seen some games from by now, but I digress. Your point about him maybe playing against the Flyers, I do see that as a possibility. I don't. The problem is that like we also just said, I don't know that they have a choice other than to ride their starting goaltender until they can't, basically.
Do or die time.
Yeah, we all thought, I know we all said a million times on this podcast, beginning of the season, we thought Cossa would get some starts this season. Doesn't look like that's going to come to fruition here down the end. They're going to ride Gibson all the way, so it's going to be an interesting one. All right, guys, that's going to do it for episode 76. Quick reminder where you can find us. Follow us on Twitter at Flying Octopod and join our YouTube channel. Smash that subscribe button at The Flying Octopod. You can also listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Tony, I'm going to go home and watch St. Elmo's Fire tonight. And then maybe if it's my Friday, so maybe I'll do a double dip and hit Youngblood as well, because that is a great movie. I heard they were doing it.
It really is.
I think they're doing like an updated version.
They are, and I don't think there's going to be tea with Miss McGee on this one.
Yeah. That was Youngblood's such a great movie. Such a good one. Anyway, hey, and by the way, out of the doom and gloom, look at those Tigers today, man. Kevin McGonigal, God, just whooping up on San Diego. And I'm here out in California. I got 3 Padres fans in the office, and I'm running around. Yeah. So we got some excitement there, guys. No, not all doom and gloom. But thanks for watching episode 76. We'll be back next week. God, it's every week we're like, I hope we have something better to talk about. I hope there's a better mood, a better vibe. So next week is pretty much do or die for us, man. With that, we bid you adieu. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Flying Octopus Podcast. Follow us on YouTube at the Flying Octopus channel and Twitter at Flying Octopod.